Affairs analyst. Good evening to you, Mr. Michael. Thank you very much for joining us on Politics Tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Olajimoke. Thank you for having me.
Right. So interestingly, the Senate has shown interest in this matter. There are some senators who have said the Speaker of the Benue State House of Assembly was acting as script, and the NJC has now given a verdict on it, which says that Honorable Justice Ekwembese remains the Chief Judge. What's your perspective about what has been called a looming constitutional crisis in Benue State? What do you think is happening?
Okay, thank you once again. I think the matter is straightforward. You have a situation where, in the full practice of democracy, you have the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary acting together, all to give Nigerians the best of governance. And in doing that, all these various arms of government have to exercise their powers in a way to bring progress and also check each other. So the judiciary has the responsibility of answering to the executive and the legislature, and the highest check that gets to be provided, is provided for under the Constitution, relates to the power to remove the Chief Judge of a state. And that is provided for succinctly under Section 292, Sub 1A, Sub 2 of the Constitution, where it lists clearly that it is the governor and the House of Assembly that have the powers to remove the Chief Judge. A few lines down on that, in that very section 292, Sub B, it makes provision for the removal of a judicial officer. Now, the Constitution goes ahead to provide that to remove a judicial officer, it has to be with input from the NJC and the governor and the House of Assembly. So, in my view, and as going by the clear wordings of the Constitution, what happened in Benue State was proper. It was according to law. Oh, Nigerians have struck again. It was proper according to law, and the legislature was simply exercising its powers in that regard. Now, please pardon the interruption. Power will kick in a few moments. But I need to point out that that section makes provision that the legislature will send a resolution to the governor. It is the governor that will properly act on the removal. You know, it comes from even the process of appointment. When a judicial officer is recommended to be appointed as a judge or the chief judge of a state, it remains a recommendation until the governor acts on it. So for now, that recommendation has been sent by the Benue State House of Assembly by law, by going through and obeying the letter of the provisions of the Constitution. It is for the governor now to act on it, and that is what we are waiting for. Remember that aside from recommending that the governor should remove the chief judge from his position, they also made a recommendation to the NJC that the chief judge should be removed the office. Now, to remove as the judicial, he should be removed as the judge entirely.
So that was the day after, Mr. Michael, let me comment. That was the day after the removal of the chief judge. But if I'm clear enough, what you've said tonight is that the NJC is not saddled with the responsibility of appointing and firing any judicial officer. Is that what you just said?
I am saying it does not have a hand by the letter of its Constitution in removing the chief judge. It is under Section 292, succinctly provided for.
So because you've mentioned Section 292, let's be clear about this Section 290 of the 1999 Constitution, 1A, which states that a judicial officer shall not be removed from his office or appointment before his age of retirement, except in the following circumstances: Chief Judge of a State, of Grand Qadi of a Sharia Court of Appeal, or President of a Customary Court of Appeal of a State, by the governor acting on an address supported by 2/3 majority of the House of Assembly of the state, praying that he be so removed for his inability to discharge the functions of his office or appointments, whether arising from infirmity of mind or of body, or for misconduct of or contravention of the Code of Conduct. So this part of the Constitution is what the State Assembly says stamps its rightful place to remove the State Chief Judge. And that's what you're saying is valid tonight, isn't it?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. As you have read from your own wordings, the NJC is not mentioned. But if you go down, just the very next subsection, it speaks about the removal of a judicial officer. That means a judge. So it is in the process of removing a judicial officer, that is somebody from totally serving as a judge, that the NJC is involved. If you just look the following next section down. So clearly, it couldn't have been a mistake by the framers of the Constitution to, in one breath, make provision for the removal of the head of court, chief judge, a grand cadi, or the president of a court of appeal without recourse to the NJC, and then in the next breath, make recommendation for the removal of that person as a judge entirely with the inclusion of the NJC in its functions. Now, I've also stated that the House, in the first prayer, was to remove Milord Justice Piambese as the chief judge, and then the second prayer was to recommend him to the NJC for investigation. In that prayer, he is now going to be removed as a judicial officer if the NJC concludes its workings and finds that the allegations are proper. So there are two distinct issues here. The first issue does not require the NJC. The second issue requires the NJC.
All right. I mean, if you're here tonight to say the NJC does not have a hand in the removal of a judicial officer, I wonder why the NJC has now called what the State House of Assembly in Benue State has done as illegal and invalid. Now, NJC has urged the state government to adhere to the provisions of the 1999 Constitution regarding the appointments, discipline, and removal of judicial officers. The Constitution is supposed to be clear and unambiguous, and I wonder what this means for us as a country, especially when lawyers on one hand say our laws, our Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, is not ambiguous. On the other hand, you can test the law. Section 290, just like I read out, there is a part B of that section which states that before you can remove a judge, a petition must be written against the judge to the National Judicial Council, NJC, and they will determine to hear it. It is after they've heard it, they can decide to clear him or suspend him and recommend him to the governor to remove him. Unless NJC recommends to the governor to remove the chief judge, the governor cannot act. So who takes the day in court?
Okay, so from what you just read now, there are two provisions. To remove the head of the court, who is the chief judge, and to remove him entirely from acting as a judge. You need to get that. The issue is a bit close, but it is different. You must first be a judge before you are appointed a chief judge. So to remove you as a judge, we do not need the NJC to come in. It's from the very words of the Constitution that you read. It is to remove him as a judicial officer that requires the NJC to come in. But again, let me just even say, and then before I go on, with the utmost respect to the institution of the NJC is not an arm of government. The NJC is just a creation of the Constitution to function under the judiciary. The arms of government are the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. So let us not presume to allocate so much powers to the NJC beyond what it is constitutionally provided for. But again, let's assume that everything that happened here was wrong. Let's say the House was wrong and it read the Constitution upside down. Let's say by dint of whatever extraordinary circumstances, the governor was wrong in taking the steps to write a petition to the House of Assembly. Under this very democracy that we practice, what is the way forward? If a step has been taken purportedly to be based on the Constitution, and you feel that it is wrong, what step are you supposed to take in a democracy? Section 6 of the Constitution provides that. It provides for powers of the judiciary. You can simply go to court and ventilate your grievance